Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Oh, thank you. This is great.
Breakfast will be at 8:30.
Breakfast on top of this?
You bet.
Thanks, that's great.
There, hit it! Oh, God!
Welcome to Fly Fishing Northwest. I'm Pete Van Gytenbeek, your host, and today we're coming to you from the Ruby Springs Lodge on the Ruby River in southwestern Montana. This is a gorgeous spot, and for those of you who are interested in geography, let me tell you that over my shoulder, about 20 miles to the north, the Ruby flows into the Beaverhead. The Beaverhead then flows into the Big Hole to make the Jefferson River, and the Jeff flows on north for some 50-odd miles to join the Madison and the Gallatin, which in turn creates the upper Missouri River. And for those of you who are trout fishermen, you know we're standing right smack in the middle of Mecca. There's only one thing I don't understand about this show, frankly, and I've got to talk to my sidekick, Les Johnson, about that, and that's why we're here the first week in May instead of in the end of September when we're supposed to be here. I came over from Seattle yesterday in the car and drove by a ski area, and there wasn't a bare spot on it. So Les, would you please explain to me why this isn't September and what I'm doing here?
Well, they get a little warming trend about the end of April, and usually a runoff, small runoff. The river rises, drops back down. As you can see now, it's starting to clear up a little. Fish start to move on to the riffles, and we've got about a 1-month window of opportunity before everybody gets here and the big runoff happens.
Well, you've yet to give us a bum steer, so...
Well, it's looking awful good to me.
It does. You know, we've got a jam-packed show, too. We're going to get a chance to float the Big Hole River in a john boat, to fish some of the spring ponds and little streams up here in the upper valley, to fish the Ruby itself, and a real pair of treats. One is to see a lost art being practiced, and that's the building of a bamboo fly rod at the Winston Rod Company in Twin Bridges. And we've got Mr. Montana Trout, Bud Lilly, to tell us about prospects for this year's fishing in Montana. So Les, while our viewers get a word from our sponsors, how about you and I get down to the Ruby?
I'm ready. This little riffle right down here looks real good, right between that riffle.
Fly Fishing Northwest on Prime Sports is brought to you by Internet Waterway, the premier online site for boaters and fishermen. www.iwol.com.
Well, welcome back. One of the secret spots or the unusual things about the Upper Ruby drainage is that there are a number of spring creeks. John Sampson, I think, has decided to share one of his secret spots with us. John, tell me a little bit about this spot. This looks like a nifty place, and I know there used to be a spring creek right here.
Right, there's a spring creek that actually feeds it at the upper end, and then there's a series of underground springs that feed it. It's about 3.5 acres, and it's got some very large native browns and rainbow trout in it.
Well, let's go out and see if we can scare one up.
Let's do that.
Got that yuck bug on?
Of course. It's a Pope Catholic. Come on.
You got the giant size in this wind, or just the regular?
That's pretty good size. I don't think anybody's going to turn it down for lack of bulk. Oh, little rainbow, we'll take him. If he ever gets around here. Come on now, stop running at the boat, you silly fish. Yeah, the water may be cold, but the fish has got some energy. Come on here. I'll get him, John. Nice and fat.
I don't think we got to sink those chronomids too far.
That's what he hit, huh?
Oh, he's off. Yep, he hit a chronomid, and I got a bunch of them, so we're okay.
You don't think my partner gets a little goosey, do you? There he goes.
All right.
Yeah, that fish's up on the surface.
No, not really.
No?
That woolly bugger was coming up.
Was
It's
coming
waiting.
up.
I'm going to stick this back in here before.
Oh, these are nice little husky fish.
Active.
They're good and strong, John.
Yeah, they
Nice
are.
fish. You know, this water's probably still pretty cold, but they're just. This
Well,
guy-
that's another thing about the spring. The fish haven't been harassed yet by anglers, and they're hungry and they're eager. And the water temperature is nice and cool. It's not warm. The fish aren't lethargic.
Easy. It's that guy.
Nice rainbow.
Yeah. I just want to get a hold of the hook guy. That's all.
Forceps.
You know, these are all barblets. He'll come right out of it.
A way to fight another day.
He's all right.
You still got the yuck bug on, Pete?
Yeah.
Pete
I'm
doesn't
good.
eat any other flies. This is a nice fish. Oh, just a nice little rainbow here. I catch the one you guys want, and I still get heat.
That's a nice trout. Look at that one, Dan.
Oh, that is a nice fish. How'd it go, Les? That's it.
That's a little better, Lester.
That's some more like it.
Lester the molester.
John, how about it? If I got something in this box that'll work, or you keep feeding me flies?
Yeah, well, sure. What we've been doing today, Van, is fishing subsurface predominantly in the springtime before the flies have had a chance to come up and hatch out. So we've been fishing leech patterns. We've been fishing chironomids. We've been fishing mostly the
Yeah,
subsurface.
you give one like that. Okay.
Yeah, and
So an emerging bug that's basically coming to the surface,
a bug that's
getting ready to hatch.
getting ready to hatch, or that still has a few weeks left until it hatches, swimming around, and then also small bait fish, sculpins, bullheads, things like that, and your leech patterns will imitate that.
Okay, now partner, fess up. What are you using back there? Because
I
you've
used-
been just
I
beating
used
up on me something
I
awful.
used exactly, when I called John, I said, what color should I tie? He said, tie olive ones, and that's exactly what I did, and they have worked really well.
Okay, now why is it that your fly is 4 times bigger than my fly? Why is that?
Well, I worked that out with John as well.
I believe that.
And every time I give him one to give you, he's been stashing it in this box.
In other words, I've been set up big time. Okay, well, now that I've got the secret, we can go back out and get some more.
Now, what did you have on there?
That's a
a
prince
chronomid?
net.
Little Prince.
Oh, a prince. Great.
All right.
All right.
Hey!
Hey, all right. Did you see how many times he hit that?
Yeah.
Like what, 10?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
he, kept,
sure-
he
no,
stayed
he was
right
watching.
behind it and
They're just
nibbled, huh?
watching the
Yeah.
line.
Here, I got
time
one.
he pulled
I got
a
one
real-
chasing mine now. Come on. Come on.
Seem to be loaded back in this little bay here.
They really do. They just kind of surround it, you know? Isn't it amazing when you hold them just right and they're paralyzed?
Yeah.
It's one of the good things about these guys. Nice little feller. Go back, grow up. Bring your mother.
Oh.
I bet that's a nice one, Wes.
Yeah, he's a nice little fish.
13, 14 inches?
And really thick shoulders. They're
Yeah,
just pretty.
they're in
He's
nice
only
shape,
about a
aren't
foot,
they?
but he's just so fat.
Yeah,
You know?
they're nice.
Yeah, nice.
We'll be right back with more Fly Fishing Northwest after this break. Well, welcome back to Fly Fishing Northwest. As you know, we've been fishing on the Ruby River, and we've had the good fortune to be hosted at a place called the Ruby Springs Lodge by their owners. And before I introduce you, I'd like to say this. I've been fortunate enough to go to a lot of lodges on a lot of nice rivers, and this is as good as it gets. You all have done just a lovely job. And with that, I'd like you to meet Paul and Jean Mosley, who are the owners of the ranch. How did you guys do this? Where'd the idea come from?
Well, I think the idea came about when I was in Seattle at the time and was trying to get into graduate school and was taking calculus and chemistry, and realized that was not a pursuit that I was interested in at the time. And John and I had talked about it. This was prior to Jeannie and I meeting, and I had moved over here in '92, and John was working up in Alaska, and this was just about a year before Jeannie and I met. And this was an area that I had looked at and sort of fallen in love with. It was sort of quiet, not as much traffic as Paradise Valley, not quite as well known, and but still sort of maintained its feel of Montana. And I traveled around for about a year, looking at different places in around Idaho and Wyoming, and kept coming back to here. And it just sort of came together.
One of the nice things about this place is that it is on a ranch. It is in ranch country, and we're not near a town, or at least not obviously so. And this is the way Montana's supposed to be.
Well, it's the great thing about it is the gentleman that we bought it from, he's a rancher and still is a rancher. And it still is a cattle operation. And he obviously has to be a little more concerned about keeping the cattle out of the stream. And that's been a good education for him and a good education for us. So.
I notice you have the stream fenced out, and the stream bank growth is coming along.
Yeah, it's Mother Nature's pretty resilient. It was pretty beat down for a while, but we've fenced it now. This is in its third year, and it repairs itself.
And mostly brown trout, it would appear, just from our fishing today.
Yeah, the Ruby's a tailwater fishery, and it is probably 99% browns. You get a few spillover from the reservoir, but it's predominantly a brown trout fishery.
I made the comment at the opener on the show that I was standing in the midst of Mecca, as far as trout fishermen go, and I certainly think that's the case.
No, we like to describe it as it's pleasantly overwhelming to find the waters to fish.
You know, the siting of the cabins and the lodge and the eating facility terrace along this riverbank is beautifully done. Was that your selection?
Well, that was a brainstorm of Jeannie and I and John.
Really?
And sort of laying the sticks out and walking around and probably repositioning them about a dozen times before we think we got it right. But it was this building was actually 2 stories to start, and so we changed our minds a lot.
Jane, one of the things that obviously is a high point here is the food. Do you have a chef? Do you do it yourself? And where does all this wonderful stuff come from?
We had some help with the menu, but after our first year, we've sort of weeded out everything that we don't want and are doing things better in the kitchen that we had rave reviews about. So we cover everything from duck to fresh roasted garlic chicken, We bring in some game dishes. We have flown in fresh Atlantic salmon with a pesto sauce. So it really covers the most discerning appetite, and the chef also caters to vegetarians.
So those of us who think of fishing lodges as hamburgers and beans and beer
Chicken fried steak.
need to kind of change our focus when it.
That's
when it
right. I
comes
think people have been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. What about the non-fishing guest? Wives, youngsters, men who don't happen to fish and the other half of the family does, or somebody who just would maybe come here for a nice quiet stay to get rejuvenated. What about for those folks?
Non-angling people, there's a whole variety of things to do. There's horseback riding, which we use Tate's Upper Canyon Ranch, which is very close by, and they have a great pasture, and they go up the backcountry in the Rubies. We have wildflower identification walks for anyone who's interested in that, backcountry hikes with lunches, or just sitting in your cabin listening to the river go by on the screen porch is just about good enough for a relaxation.
And then if somebody has to have a tourist trap, you have one right up the road here in Virginia City, right?
Exactly.
So you've got everything a Montana vacation could offer one.
Right. Great bands, great entertainment,
Well,
and but if you want to stick around here and just put your feet up, that's an option too.
Paul, I know you're a serious fisherman by reputation. I hear in Seattle how intense you are and how very good you are. Do you ever get a chance to fish in this business?
Yeah, I do. It's John is who you've been fishing with is our head guide, and I'm about number 5. And so when we are booked, I do get out and I do guide, and I'm looking forward to getting a lot more time on the water.
I mean, do you ever slip out here before breakfast in the morning and get a few casts in?
Oh yeah. No, that's the nice thing about just being right on top of the Ruby here. It's so close, and when there's a hatch out, you just you leave your obligations for a while and go stand in the river.
And do you fish too?
Yes, I do. I grew up fishing with a spin rod and started fly fishing probably 5 years ago now, and I'm probably within the last year and a half have become more self-sufficient with a fly rod. I actually know what I'm doing, I think.
I suspect you're under a fair amount of pressure here with those two.
Oh, yes. The guide's hovering behind me, the guide.
And you enjoy it?
I do. I just absolutely love it, and the scenery, and there's so much more to fishing than just being a trout stalker, so they say.
You know, it's an interesting point. People don't seem to understand. I mean, I always say to folks, it's just another excuse to get outdoors. I mean, some people go out with a golf club, and some folks go out and hike, and you know, we go out and fish, and we love the water and love the wildlife along the rivers. I mean, especially floating. We're getting a chance to float, and you just get up on some of the most magnificent pieces of nature that way. It's great fun.
And those are some of the nicest days when fishing is slow and you just get to spend some time with yourself.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a lovely piece of the world. You all ought to be congratulated. This is just incredible. And you know, I guess it's my age, but I look at you as a pair of youngsters. Like, my golly, you know, what a great history this place is going to have. You know, it's,
well, thanks.
It's going to be fun.
We feel good about it.
You know,
it's been exciting.
We're delighted to have been your guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us, because we'll be right back with Bud Lilly fishing on the Ruby River for brown trout.
Isn't that a gorgeous trout?
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen a trout I didn't like.
That's right. They're all nice ones. Got a real treat today. One of my old friends and a gentleman is pretty well known as Mr. Trout in the United States, certainly Mr. Montana Trout, Bud Lilly. I think anybody's ever heard of Yellowstone Park without hearing of Bud Lilly's Trout Shop. And Bud, more recently, since you sold the shop, I think you've been working or having fun with the state. Didn't the governor put you to work?
He really has, Pete. The last 10 years I've worked as a Montana ambassador. Montana is a kind of a transition state. We're changing our ways of trying to make a living in this wonderful country. It's originally, you know, we were dealing with agriculture and logging and mining, and those industries have seen over the years a loss of jobs, and so we're trying to bring in environmentally friendly businesses. So working through the old gag of taking somebody fishing, we can introduce them to Montana.
I can't think of anybody better to take someone fishing. You've done that for me a few times, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's see if we can't catch a trout or two out of here, and we'll just kind of keep talking as time goes on. I want to catch up with you.
Well, I'll make a stab at it, but ordinarily, you know, when they turn on the camera, the fish turn off.
I know that.
So we'll
I'm
try
glad to hear it happens to you,
Okay.
too.
Let's do it.
All right. You know, just looking at the stream vegetation, I mean, it really is spring. It's just the first little bit of green on the grass, and
That is the magic time.
there's not a full bud anywhere. Now, you mentioned this early spring fishing to me for many years, and your son Greg has talked about it a lot. Has it just been one of those things that nobody's taken advantage of for years?
Yeah, I guess they can't believe it. You know, even the locals think that you can't fly fish until the middle of the summer.
How's the fishing in the state, Bud? Is it holding up fairly well? I mean, Montana's getting awful popular. I keep worrying about all my favorite spots. I know that's real selfish, but...
Well, I think that's a reasonable worry. You know, we spent a long time developing a wild trout fishery in Montana,
That's for sure.
and we still have a marvelous wild trout fishery that is supported by special regulations. And I think there's also a developing ethic among the fishermen that have developed the last number of years that they just automatically release the majority of their trout. And catch and release is not in itself the entire answer, but it certainly helps to restore a downgraded wild fishery. And as a result, we've stayed away from the hatchery trout. And that may be our salvation, in that most of these hatchery trout are very susceptible to the thing that's plaguing some areas called whirling disease.
Ah, yes.
And the wild trout may have enough resistance so that we're going to survive this thing with just some juggling here and there. It's not a crisis, it's a wake-up call, and it has to be dealt with. And Montana is dealing with it. I'm working with a group that the governor appointed called the Governor's Task Force on Whirling Disease, and they're constructing a research laboratory at Montana State University, and they're doing a lot of things to try to approach this problem head on. They nominated one of the fish and wildlife biologists as a kind of the whirling disease czar to coordinate the whole program. So I'm not panicked about whirling disease or even the pressures that are coming from lots of anglers. What we're developing with lots of anglers is a social problem. You know, that people have to become a little bit more courteous in their fishing ethics.
Some of the new devotees don't seem to understand that as well, do they?
No, there's been some conflicts. And they're going to have to understand that our spaces are being more limited. You're going to have to share. And I think in some cases on these rivers that are becoming so used by boats and fishing pressure, we might even have to look at a lottery.
Really?
And I don't advocate that because I think it's artificial, but if it's going to be a way to preserve the fishery so that everybody enjoys it, why, I think we have to look at it. That's that little one that Pete was talking about.
Well, I'm used to fishing with Les, you know, and you got to stay a leg up on Les all the time, or life is just brutal.
Isn't that a gorgeous trout?
Yeah, it is.
I've never seen a trout I didn't like.
That's right, they're all nice ones.
Have all this help, it's amazing.
Fella could get spoiled rotten.
Oh, God.
Open wide.
Do you take it well?
Okay. Nice little native brown.
Just beginning to feed up.
You know, the nice thing about trout is they say they're the only thing that grows after they're dead.
See if we can give him a little more line this time. It seems like they, as
Yeah,
it swings across.
He
they
came
come
up from a ways down.
Yeah.
That was a bigger fish.
Les always does that too, you know.
Everybody
Yeah,
does
real
it to
quietly
me.
says, "Oh, yeah, well, you just missed the biggest one of the trip, Van, but it's okay, you know."
You guys always do it to me.
Oh, that's a nice brownie. Nice fish.
Ruby River Brown.
Where'd you get him on?
That was on the Secret Fly.
So how can I tell the viewers about what fly to use when you tell me it's secret?
The secret is that it's tied by an expert and probably simulates something that they eat in here periodically. I really don't know the name of it. I would expect that these trout in here are used to sculpin.
I bet you're right.
You know, it's a good cold water stream with a rocky bottom. Has all the habitat for sculpin. And this time of the year, we talked about fishing early. You know, the sculpin is not any longer permitted as a bait fish in Montana.
Is that right? Yeah, they
Because
used to be deadly.
they're
Oh, that's better than the last one.
They possibly are carriers of the whirling disease,
Oh, really?
so they've outlawed them. But these fish are used to them.
Nice, Brown.
Oh,
Oh, he
God.
left. He left.
I was trying to get a jump out of him.
Yeah. He was interested in going back down to his lair.
Pete, I've got a little different fly on my rod, this Winston rod that Tom Morgan made for me. Give it a try.
All right. Always enjoyed Tom's rods. Oh, that's nice. But that is so much a Tom Morgan rod.
That's our style.
That's very nice. You know, it feels a lot like bamboo, doesn't it?
Well, you know, the early day inexpensive drugstore type bamboo rods were so slow. And that's what I learned to cast with. So I'm been very reluctant to adjust to these quick action rods. And Tom built this and gave it to me about 10, 15 years ago. And it's my style.
Well, you know, his, I guess, pupil or student, the keeper of the flame, Glenn Brackett, is building the rods at Winston now, and we're going down to see how he does it.
Yeah,
Should be very interesting.
Glenn's the master.
Well, I'll tell you, the way these fish are treating me, I think we might as well just wrap it up right now.
Well, the difficulty is that they see the label on the rod.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go see how these things are built. Welcome back. As you can see, we've made it from the river to the shop of Glenn Brackett, who is one of the two remaining people practicing the art of building bamboo rods. Glenn, you're really nice to have us here at the Winston Company and showing us a little of how you do it. And people didn't want to hear from me, so if you could just begin to walk us through some of the things that you're doing,
Sure.
we'd really appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, Pete.
All right, Glenn,
Give me one of those pieces.
here it comes.
Now this is our milling machine. Thanks, you got it. You can let go. You can see the chips flying.
Wow.
There it is. So what we've done here is cut the 60-degree angle and also put a taper on at the same time. You can actually see the taper from
Sure
tip to
can.
butt
I'll be
chin.
darned. Look at that. Glenn, what's the next step here now?
Well, let's see, Pete. After they come off of the machine, we take six sections that would be graded for strength, color, blemishes, and various other things. And we take them and mate them in this particular fashion on this assembly star. And then you use the old Scotch tape method. Get the sections to all mate together with their sides facing each other, the gluing sides. And then they would lay down. We'd lay it back down on the bench. Now this is a cute little process. We take a nice sharp razor blade and we'll split them down and open it up, lay the glue in there, and you'll see that that happen before your very eyes. And bingo. So now they're all open and ready for glue.
I think when people see the time and the effort and the skill involved, they may begin to appreciate why many of us love bamboo and why it's so dear.
Well, it sure made an impact on my life, both in building and in using it as a fishing tool. So there's what happens after it goes through the gluing machine.
So you glued it and then you wrapped it in your wrapper?
It's wrapped with under pressure, so it really binds it together. It's actually called a binding machine.
Okay.
And basically the string holds it in place while the glue does its work.
And it's going somewhere for a year now, you said?
Yeah, now what we'll do is we'll hang this in a special heated cabinet in a vertical position. And this allows the hollowed section to bleed the excess glue away. This would be the cabinet, the heated cabinet, and we'll hang the glued sections there. And they'll stay in the cabinet for onwards of a week. And then we'll take them out and check them for, whether the glue did its job properly. And then we'll set them aside for a good year or more before we actually make them into a rod.
And each one of these, you would get 2 sections of a rod or just one section?
This only, we'll get one, in this case, one butt section of it. So one butt to a rod. So it takes basically 3 of these sections to make a completed 2-tip rod. So what we'll do is we'll take a scraping tool and we'll scrape this. In fact, I ought to let you do it, Pete.
With my heavy hand, you probably lose the potential of a wonderful new Winston rod.
And what we've done is we've anchored it into place. And what we'll do is we'll scrape the outer bark off. And that's a fairly straightforward operation. And the first flat of the 6 flats that we're looking at, you can get your eye down there and look at the exposed wood underlying the bark.
The real art form really is being able to select the pieces to get the tapers that you're after.
That's a large part of the rod building or crafting process, is just learning how to select the good materials from, and put them all kind of together. And what we'll do is we'll sand it and get it good and flat and smoothed out. And we use several grits of sandpaper to do that. And the more you smooth it out, the more you expose the beauty of the wood and the imperfections that, I wouldn't want to use the word imperfections, but the various unique features that the wood has. We're closing in on the finished rod here, Pete, and starting to form the handle, put the individual cork rings, stacking them, gluing them into place, and then we'll turn the handle according to whatever the person's preferences are. You know,
A lot of these rods being made special order then for an individual who's already told you what grip they like? Or?
Both ways, but we do build them special. That has been the normal way of building, and everyone's kind of individual. And we'll keep stacking them. This takes me a little longer, but we'll stop at this stage just to kind of visualize what.
So then when the glue dries, you clean that up and then you run it in the lathe to get the shape for the person's hand that you've been working with.
Yes, and this will sit for a couple of days, but those individual cork rings are what form the handle, and it's, you know, natural cork that comes from Portugal.
Right.
Well, at this stage we're getting close to the finished rod, putting the wraps and guides on that distinguish it for what it is, in this case a Winston rod. And this is a hand wrapping machine that was built back in the 30s or 40s by Lou Stoner, one of the founding fathers of the Winston Rod Company. And what we do is we use nylon and silk threads in some combination. And if everything goes well, I'll hit the loop and come out right. Okay. So there's one side of the wrap. And what we're putting on here is a stripping guide that's agate. It's a very traditional type of guide and material that goes back a goodly number of years, and you very seldom see it on rods anymore, but Winston does feature agate guides. Then what would follow this wrapping procedure would be the coatings would go on. In this case, we would apply varnish to the wraps, a number of them, and then we would varnish the complete rod after those wrap coatings are applied. Do you want to order yours today, Pete? Wait for a year or two for yours?
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to. I've got a couple of bamboos as we chatted. I love them. To pull them out. The trouble is they're so dear. I'm very careful, and that's silly. I don't need to be. You just treat them properly.
No, and you raise a good point. Actually, this material is more durable than some of the synthetic materials.
That's what I understand. That's what I understand. Well, one of my rods came from my dad, and he used it for many, many years, and it's a lovely rod. Glenn, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This has just been super, and thank you for taking the time. I'm sure you had better things to do today than host us and host our viewers. But I'm sure they're going to love it.
Enjoyed sharing it with you.
Thanks, pal. Good to see you again. Thank you.
Stay tuned, because we'll be right back with more Fly Fishing Northwest after these announcements.
Welcome back to Fly Fishing Northwest. We're back on the big hole now. As you can see, my partner has managed to get into the water first, and he's up above me. So we'll take this chance to find out a little bit about the river from John Sampson. John, how about this stream where this is early season fishing? The water's gorgeous.
It's pretty much the classic time of year to be on the big hole, Van. It's pre-runoff. The water's clear and low.
It's just gorgeous.
The fish are hungry for salmon fly nymphs and salmon and stonefly dry flies, and it's a great time to be here.
It really is. I've heard about this early season fishing for a long time, and to come and look at the river, this is just perfect. I mean, I've fished this river over the years. It's gorgeous. It doesn't get any better than this.
That's right. The crowds are low, and the weather can be very pleasant, and the fishing is very good, as we've seen this morning.
Yeah, we've already caught a few, and hopefully we'll catch a few more.
That's right.
I got to stay ahead of my partner up
Let's
there.
go get him.
All right.
Nice brown. Not that little.
No, it's a nice one. Pretty fish. You give Van a chance to do that chuck and duck, and he's in his own element. Well, the thing is that to even think about getting dry fly fishing, starting this early in Montana is pretty darn nice, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't care if it's tough, we can do it, it's great.
Fly's floating nicely, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, you big brown.
Yes!
Yes, yes!
There he is, there he is. There's something anyway.
Let him run if he has to.
No, he's messing.
Little trout.
Yeah, it's a trout.
Little guy.
He's
Nope,
off.
there we
It's
go.
all right.
Long distance release.
That's all right.
We got a few fish to take the dry, and we landed one on the dry, but the hatch really wasn't happening, so we decided to switch over to some nymphs. And we're essentially just using the adult fly version that was coming off there in the nymphs. We've got 2 flies on,
Yeah.
a top fly and a dropper, and we've got a stonefly imitation and a prince nymph, and about a 14 on there. And we've also got a hare's ear, which will imitate that March brown mayfly, and we've got an indicator on. And,
Yep.
and so we'll give that a try and see,
Well,
see what we do with that.
It's worked pretty well.
We picked up a few fish.
Yeah, it's worked pretty well.
Hit it. Oh, that was a trout. Okay, we got to get back tuned into, yeah, because you're going to get some 18, 19 inches in here that are just going to scream.
Okay.
And that was one of them. Yep. Okay, let him run if he wants to. That's it.
Not very big.
It's hard to tell what it is. It might be a trout. He got a good pull on it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little better.
Yeah, nice fat little fish.
It's the 18-inch brown. Hit it, hit it!
Oh, man.
Up, it's up, it's on, it's on!
No, it ain't.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Hey!
And this is a homemade bread from your place?
Yes, at Maisel made.
Oh, wow. And what do we have here? We have a
Wild rice salad with vegetables.
Ooh.
You know, Les, I don't know about you. I've been on the river for about 40 years. I have never sat at a tablecloth at a table.
Never,
have you?
never.
Have you? I haven't either.
This is it for me. This is my first time. But I'm not going to just sit here and look. I'm going to go right after it.
I'm supposed to do this. I suppose once in your life you're supposed to do this. Is that it?
I would do it more often if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity.
Yeah. It's not something the guy just wants to do once for the experience, I don't believe.
It's even healthy, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well, there's always a downside.
Well, the brownies are there. Look at
Okay,
those
I'll eat a
things.
couple of those.
Those are sinkers. Well, Les, what do you think? You still able to, after that lunch, you able to fish still?
Well, I need to swing my arms a little, get some exercise. That was my best shore lunch I'd ever had.
That's awesome. I have never had white tablecloth on a river.
Now I'm going to feed these brown trout some steak.
Well, I got a great big spruce fly with 3 wings, and you've got that killer, so let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I got Ryan's bighorn bunny.
Pretty fish.
Yeah, nice.
Boy, that's got great color, Les. Look at the color on that guy.
Oh yeah, he's a pretty one.
That is nice.
Isn't hit that big woolly bugger.
Really great color.
It is. It's a beauty.
The color is just gorgeous.
There he goes to bite another day. High five, Lester!
Hey, right on.
Gotta go, Les.
We broke the bug. Let's do it now.
Fly Fishing in Salt Waters is a handsome 4-color magazine covering saltwater fly fishing from Alaska salmon to Bahamas bonefish. This magazine is written and photographed by the gurus of our sport, including Lefty Cray, Flip Pallett, Dan Blanton, and the Northwest's own Steve Raymond and Les Johnson, among a host of others. Order your subscription today by calling 206-443-3273.
Well, that's about it for another program on Fly Fishing Northwest, and it's been a fine program. We've had great fishing here on the Big Hole River with our hosts and guides from the Ruby Springs Lodge. We had a chance to watch Glenn Brackett build a bamboo rod, and there aren't many people doing that anymore. That's a great segment. And my friend Bud Lilly joined us, Mr. Trout himself, up here in Montana to tell us about what's going on in Montana and its prospects for the future. And I guess that's about all there is, except to wish you tight lines. Until next time.
Oh, you let go of that line.
I know it.
Right here. There he is.
Ah, nuts.
Is that like fade to black?
That's it.